Yeah, he gave me a thumbs up. Okay, good morning, everyone. We'd like to call the meeting to order. Council is conducting this meeting in person and via conference call in accordance with the MGA Act, Section 199. Council chambers is now open for public attendance in person. However, members may be still joining meetings remotely using our current teleconference process. If you submitted a comment request, the chair will call on you at the appropriate time. The chair may also ask for comments and concerns from public relating to a particular topic, and at this time, phone lines will be unmuted. If you'd like to speak, please state your name, and we ask that only one member of public speak at a time. All persons will be allotted 10 minutes to speak as per procedural bylaw. We ask if the meeting recesses that any callers hang up and call back as the meeting reconvenes. This helps with call quality. Please note this call is being recorded and will be uploaded to our website and or social media. To eliminate background noise, please mute your phone during the meeting. Everybody has a right to be present at council meetings and council committee meetings. Any attendees that are considered disruptive to the progression of this meeting may be removed at the discretion of the chair as per MGA Section 198. Thank you for your cooperation and understanding. So at this time, I would like to do a roll call because we have several council members that are calling in. So, Reeve Amberlank.
Good morning, I'm here.
Okay. Myself, Deputy Scott Claassen is present. Councillor Jason Wilson.
I'm here.
Okay. Councillor Donna Bigger.
Here.
Councillor Tom Eichert.
Here.
Councillor Glenn Kester.
Here.
Councillor Ben Armstrong.
Yep.
Okay. So we have an agenda before us. Is there anything we need to add?
Through the chair, under transportation, I'd like to talk about Range Road 205, that construction project.
Okay. Did everybody hear that?
205, construction project. Just
So-
some questions.
Range Road 205 construction project update? Okay.
Yeah.
Where would that fit in best? Unfinished business?
Yes, under new business.
Going to put it under new business? It doesn't matter to me, it can be under 4.4, it is under transportation. That works.
Sure. Why don't we put under 4.4?
Under 4.4.4. Anything else?
I would like to add under 2.3 regarding land use bylaw and regarding CSA 8227 certification. So under 2.3 land use bylaw.
So 2.3.1, 8277, land use bylaw.
Through the chair, or go ahead, Brian.
Oh, no, please, you go ahead first.
Go ahead, Amber.
Through the chair, if we could add, I had circulated the Hill County Council just last night regarding a resolution that they're putting forward. It's basically a follow-up resolution to the one that we did regarding medical cannabis growth, or growth of cannabis for medical use. And they're looking for a seconder, so I was hoping council might consider that perhaps under 2.3, maybe 2. And then as well, if we could add recreation cost sharing under our closed session, just a follow-up.
Okay, so Link wants to add 2.32 Nihil letter of support, or discuss
Just seconding the
letter,
the
yeah.
district.
And then 6.6 closed session in camera recreation cost sharing with Town of Strathmore. Anything else? Okay. Someone want to adopt the agenda?
I'll move the agenda as amended.
Okay, with this meeting being held this way, I'll be asking for the vote by exception. So if anybody votes in a negative, then we'll do a roll call vote. So, is there anybody opposed to the motion on the floor? Okay, hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. So we have adoption of the minutes, regular council meeting, August 24th, 2021.
I'll move the adoption of the minutes.
There's a motion on the floor. Any discussion? I'll call the question. Any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that's carried. We also have the minutes for Wheatland County public hearing, August 24th, 2021.
Also,
The listed bylaws.
Thank you. Any discussion? I'll call a question. Any opposition? Okay, hearing none, seeing none, that's carried. We will move on to Bylaw 2021-017. And we have a public hearing with this one. So the process for the Wheatland County public hearing, as it pertains to the scheduled public hearings, it will be as followed. Public hearing, first reading if required, considerations for further readings of the bylaw for those public hearings that have been closed. Further move that the above process will take place, oh sorry, this should have been a motion. Further move that the above process will take place with the absence of resolutions to go in and out of council before and after each public hearing. And that is a motion from myself to the floor. Any discussion on that motion? I'll call the question. Any opposition? Hearing none.
Sorry,
None.
Can I make a comment in favor of it?
Sorry, who is that speaking? No. No, it's just a motion
hear
for
me now?
council. It's just a motion for
Can you hear me
council to go
now?
in and out.
So just for clarity, the chair will call for people to speak in favor or in opposition once the public hearing is commenced. I believe it may be a member of the public.
Yeah, okay.
Deputy.
So I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. So we will move into the public hearing for Bylaw 2021-17. Has everything been circulated as it's supposed to be?
Through the chair, it has indeed.
Perfect. Proceed.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Council, members of the public. Stephen Kuntz presenting on behalf of administration. So this item is a response from a April 20th, 2021 directive from Council to undertake the process of removing the energy district from land use bylaw. So the proposed changes essentially are to remove the energy district and move the uses that pertain to solar energy projects and wind projects to a number of our existing uses, those being the agriculture general district, rural business district, and industrial general district. And then moving some of the specific use requirements that were within the energy district to the general regulations section of the bylaw so that they can be applied at the development permit stage under whichever use it's applied for. So we have prepared a summary of some of the changes in the report itself, and then the red line version of the bylaw has the fulsome changes there. So I'll happy to answer any questions about that, but I'll provide a bit of a summary here. So there's three kind of main reasons for these proposed changes. One is to streamline the process, both at the applicant level and as well as administratively. Next is to align with provincial requirements and the Alberta Utility Commission's kind of their role in the process, as well as the requirements with other municipalities. And then lastly, and obviously very importantly, is to reduce the confusion that's as to when members of the public should provide feedback and how that feedback is actually constructively used when considering these type of applications. So as a way, a bit of backgrounds on this. For applications of this type that are received, Alberta Utility Commission approval is required, and as per the Municipal Government Act, that approval essentially circumvents the county's statutory plans or land use bylaws. This is why having our own district for that, if something already gets the AUC approval, it kind of defeats the purpose to actually make them redesignate, because technically our plan should align with that. So this process is confusing to landowners. Obviously, when do they provide the correct feedback or other stakeholders as well? The Alberta Utility Commission process has a process for engagement, and proponents of these type of applications are required to engage prior to that application as well. So removing that step in the process, the redesignation stage, essentially allows the county to play a more active role, as well as landowners to make sure that their feedback is received at the correct time, we can actually have more of an effect on the proposal. Now, the county will still have a role, obviously, at the development permit stage. Anything that isn't addressed through the AUC approval can be captured under the development permit, and that's why we've obviously made sure to include those requirements in there as well. Also down the line, just in terms of one of the benefits as well, not requiring these applications to redesignate to a use means that they can stay for what they are now. So if it's agriculture general, for example, typically these type of proposals or projects have a lifespan of whatever it might be, 30 years or so. So when those are decommissioned down the line, they'd essentially be able to go right back to being agricultural or whatever it might be, as opposed to having to do another redesignation application. So as I mentioned, the detailed changes are in there. I'll maybe just leave those for the questions. However, we have received actually two further comments that weren't in the package. So a number were in the package, but we received an email late last week and then a letter this morning. So I have some copies for council if they'd like to see those.
Yes, please.
Yes, I believe we would.
Through the chair, would it be possible to have those emailed as well?
Yes, we'll email those out right away.
Actually, can we get it read into the record?
Through the chair, yes, we'll do both.
So there's been a request to read it into the record as well, please. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely. For the one, it has some other aspects on here. Should I just read the part that's relevant to this, just on page 2 there?
Through the chair, I would just advise just read the entire document, just so there's no questions.
fair
There's
enough.
no issues. Thanks.
All right, well, I'll start with the email that's a bit more brief. So this is from Becky Dahl. She says, her comment regarding the letter sent on July 7th, 2021. Do not make any changes that would place solar facilities or wind energy conversion systems closer to residential dwellings or property boundary. And that's the conclusion of that one. All right, so the other one, it's from Paul Blaha. Dear Stefan, Friday, August 27th, I had a phone call with Sherry Bear, senior developer at Wheatland County, to update her on our Glycerin solar project and to inquire about the proposed Wheatland County proposed land use bylaw changes we discussed previously early in 2021. She informed me that you've already done your stakeholder engagement and had your first reading of solar development bylaw proposed changes tabled with Wheatland County Council on July 7th, 2021. She also requested I provide to you before September 7th, 2021, on behalf of TIU Canada, our feedback on the proposed land use bylaw changes relating to solar projects. So the GSP Glycerin Solar Project update. TIU is developing the Glycerin Solar Project. As you know from our engagement with Wheatland County personnel dating back to February 2021, the GSP is a utility scale project on private land northeast of the town of Glycerin. The update I provided Sherry was that TIU closed the acquisition of GSP in August 10th, 2021, and filed its AUC application the same day. We also have come to agreements with Western Irrigation District and Canadian Pacific Rail to mutually coordinate our respective activities during the construction and 25-year operational life of the GSP. TIU Glycerin Solar Project has been redesignated as of August 27th, 2021 to accommodate recent high-level grid connection study by Fortis and AESO. Fortis and AESO have confirmed that major distribution line upgrade of L691 can be avoided if TIU develops a 13.3 megawatt solar project instead of a 15 megawatt project. TIU has decided to move forward with GSP at 13.3 megawatt and provided notice to Fortis to begin detailed study of the GSP grid connection. Fortis confirmed August 27, 2021. Detailed studies have begun. Pardon me. Preliminary design of the resized 13.3 megawatt GSP project meets the current Wheatland County bylaw for solar setbacks. The county land use bylaw calls for a 300-meter solar panel setback from the property line of an adjacent landowner with a residence, as per the bylaws published on the Wheatland County website, as bylaws 2016-01 in section 9.8 energy district. The GSP project has a solar setback measured at 321 meters and 397 meters from the Whites and Till property residences respectively, which are the two adjacent properties with residences. The additional benefits from the reduction in GSP size from 15 to 13.3 megawatts is the project will be on a smaller land footprint, and the noise and glare impacts from the neighboring landowners is further reduced. The project footprint reduces to approximately 72 acres from 80 acres and further allows the landowner, the Shawns, to continue farming the property how they were currently farming. Also, the 15 megawatt project layout was studied for noise and glare impacts to be within acceptable levels. There will be further reduction in both those impacts due to the reduction in project capacity to 13.3 megawatts. Just pardon me for one moment. Okay, so this section is the TIU feedback to the Wheatland County Bylaw 2021-17, the Energy District Amendment. TIU has reviewed the Wheatland County Bylaw 2021-17, Land Use Bylaw, Energy District Amendment, pages 77-79, as published on the Wheatland County website, July 6, 2021, council meeting agenda minutes, and provides the county with the following feedback. In our view, the proposed solar panel setback change to 175 meters setback to residences adjacent to the property is more reasonable than the current bylaws and is more consistent with industry practice. The bylaw should also clarify for solar projects where the landowner is leasing property to the project developer that the solar setback does not need to be prescribed at 175 meters from that residence. During development, it is common in industry for the project developer and the landowner to optimize the land use for the landowner, which can result in acceptable solar setback within the 175 meters the county is proposing. This occurs because there are several factors at play to design the solar project and many ways to mitigate the impacts on the landowner, which include sightline barriers, noise barriers, wood rows, and other glare mitigations. In our opinion, this is common industry practice. In our project, we've proposed to the landowner to maximize the use of his land for continued agricultural purposes. This has been done with project layout that includes solar setback within the 175 meters of the leasee's residence that includes industry acceptable impact mitigations. These measures have been mutually agreed upon between the landowner, the Shawns, and TIU. TIU also supports the change in solar setback from 10 meters to 22.86 meters to public road right-of-way. TIU also supports the removal of an energy district as proposed for the reasons stated by Wheatland County on pages 77 to 79 of the meeting agenda / minutes. Should you wish to discuss any of the comments, feel free to call him and he gives his number. Sincerely, Paul Blaha. So that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions should you have any.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from council staff? Anyone, council online, have any questions to council to staff? Okay, so in this public hearing, is there people that are speaking in favor of bylaw 2021-17? On the line or anything like that? It's open, okay. Don't see anyone.
Yeah, good morning. It's Paul Blaha here with TIU.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. As per our letter, we are in favor of the changes.
Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor? I'll just give it a minute here. Okay, is there anybody that would like to speak in opposition of Bylaw 2021-17? Either present or on the line? Yes, this is the appropriate time. If you can, come to the podium, state your name for the record, please. Thank you.
Morning, Council. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Janice Hilton. I would categorize this more as questions and comments as opposed to specific positive or negative feelings on the bylaw. I guess my first one is a question regarding the letter that was just read and whether or not Council will be allowing a decrease beyond the current setbacks based on agreements between the landowner and TIU. To me, that opens a gateway that perhaps Council will need to decide whether they want to open or not. I'm hoping to get some confirmation from understandings, and I'm unsure if this is completely the forum. My understanding is that the leasing of land for solar or wind power use is completely at the discretion of the landowner, that it is not an expropriation-like situation as subsurface products are. And can there be in that contract a defined end date in the contract where all of the infrastructure must be removed? Some of the comments previously makes me lead to believe that that would be correct, but it's a question that I think needs to be brought into question based on other energy companies within this area that have struggled as their projects have wound down over the course of time or are continuing at a lesser production level. So those are my assumptions, and I would like to know if there is confirmation of that information. My second comment is what regulations and recourse options are going to be put in place by the county to ensure that these energy companies continue to pay their municipal taxes and landowner leases after 20 plus years. I'm sure most people understand the direction that I'm asking these questions from. As a member of the board of directors of the Wheatland and Area Surface Rates Society, I realize we don't have direct purview over these developments, but at the same time, I think there are similar concerns. So even if production decreases, what are recourses are going to be put in land? Because my understanding at this point that our struggle with other energy companies in sight have difficulties in that situation. I would think that prior to a land use being permitted, that the county as well as the landowners would like some type of reassurance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's a couple questions there. Are we able to answer some of them from staff perspective now, or do we need some time? I know some of it at the different levels of government for sure, so maybe an overview of how the process works and what we can and can't do as council.
So through the chair, I'll let Stefan kind of address those and any points that we may have missed. We'd ask the speaker to maybe just ask for clarity and we can go from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, through the chair. Could we get the question asker to maybe do those first two again?
Sure. Can you come up and just, it was a little bit of information to digest there, so.
I probably spoke quickly as well.
Sorry about that.
Stefan. All right. So the leasing of land for solar or wind power use, I'm presuming, is completely at the discretion of the landowner. There is not an expropriation-like situation as there is with other subsurface leases. Is this correct?
Through my understanding, yes, it would be an agreement between the leasee and the landowner themselves and the project proponent. For many, I know for the wind ones, there can be a variety of different type of infrastructure on place. So it depends on the level. If they have a turbine versus an underground utility line, it varies based on what their, I guess their payout would be. So it would be voluntary.
But there's no pressure by the Alberta Utilities Commission or requirement for a landowner to undertake to put these structures on their land.
Through the chair, not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. So that covers off the first couple of comments. And presumably, in any contract that landowner goes into, there could be a defined end date in that contract where all infrastructure must be removed to the satisfaction of the landowner as opposed to the satisfaction of a regulation by government. And as opposed to simply the ability to walk away by the corporate entity.
Through the chair, I can't speak to what that would say in the lease between the landowner and the person themselves. Presumably, if they sign a lease for a certain amount of time, they should have to honor that. If there is a way to back out from that, that would be in the lease, and they would have a way to. There might be some penalty for doing that. Obviously, if they construct a tower and then the person wants to back out, there's going to have to be some repercussions for that. Typically, under the AUC process, they would require some decommissioning aspects to be involved with that as well.
And I think it's more of a general interest, I think, for the public that these kinds of issues we have come up against with other energy companies, and therefore are questions certainly to be considered by all landowners. And thirdly, any recourse options and regulations ensuring that municipal taxes and landowner leases will continue to be paid as production presumably dwindles in the 20-plus year time frame.
Through the chair, the taxes would still be the responsibility of the landowner if down the line it turns out that they're not actually using those facilities.
I really meant more the business taxes of that corporation.
So those are...
Through the chair, perhaps I could maybe address this one. So that's actually probably one of the biggest issues that municipalities in rural Alberta are struggling with right now is the mechanism for us to collect on. When you say business taxes, I assume property taxes.
Property taxes. Yes.
So I know that's an area that RMA, the Rural Municipalities of Alberta, the association, is advocating on behalf of the members. But still, there is currently no real mechanism for us to collect those linear taxation. It's a very big issue for us, and it's one we continue to advocate to try to get solved at the municipal level. But still, unfortunately, we still don't have an answer. We're hoping at some point that a higher level of government will step in and assist us with that, but it's just unfortunate that one's kind of out of our hands.
And I just wanted to bring that to the fore again. I'm not surprised at all at that answer, and to know that landholders also support, obviously, the collection of those property taxes.
The clarification on that tax, though, would be the linear assessment, and some of the property taxes themselves will go to the property. Correct.
Through the chair, I'd have to take a look at that one.
Depends on the assessment. There are parts of the assessment we can collect and goes to the properties. Parts of it we can't, from what I understand, just from the oil and gas side of it.
Yeah.
So,
Matthew had something, sorry.
so through the chair, the other question you had was the lease agreement and the payment of the lease agreement. To my understanding, that is absolutely the landowner's responsibility. County can't get involved in those aspects.
I understand that. I just wanted to bring it to the fore as in the general discussion that those two go hand in hand.
Just through
the chair.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, this is Amber.
Go ahead, Amber.
There was a question regarding securities as well, and that is something that administration has been looking into as well. And from my current understanding through discussions with other mayors and reads in Alberta, is that at this point, municipalities cannot require the collection of securities. This is just my current understanding of the situation, but that there is an opportunity for landowners to have securities written into their lease agreements with the companies. So I would encourage any landowners who are considering entering into an agreement is to keep that in mind.
Thank you, Amber.
And
Matthew
just
Buscardo.
through the Deputy Reeve to Council, just for your information, in addition to Reeve Link's comments with respect to securities and the lease in terms of that negotiation, a level of authority that obviously administration has presented to Council recently is with respect to decommissioning. And if decommissioning is solely in the basis of a binding lease agreement, there are levels of government in terms of the provincial government, the AER and AEP, that do have oversight in terms of decommissioning, bringing land back to its former state. We've obviously discussed this at length, but those are levels of jurisdictional authority that have the authority to oversee decommissioning, whether it be in terms of 20 years, 25, 30 years, however long a energy facility or what have you is operational. When it becomes non-operational and there's a decommissioning plan in place, those levels, those bodies do oversee that. So there is the authority there from the provincial
Are they in
government.
place for solar and wind projects as well as for the current oil and gas style of project?
Yes, they are.
They are. Okay, thank you.
Good discussion here. Any other questions from councils?
I'm not sure if this is the right time to bring up, but as I understand it, if the landowner signs a contract with a company, say for solar panels, it is the landowner's responsibility that at the end of the project, the decommissioning is on the landowner?
That could be addressed through the lease agreement with the developer,
Just through
is my understanding.
through the deputy, Reeve, can you re-ask that question?
Okay, so
Councillor?
I sign a contract, and they put 160 acres of solar panels on my property. At the end of 20 years, when these solar panels are obsolete, who is on the hook? The bottom line is, who is on the hook for decommissioning? If my lawyer isn't very smart, and I've been getting, it seems like a boatload of money every year, more than I can make for farming the land. Who is on the hook for this? Is there a government fund in place for this? We do not want the same thing that's happening to our orphan oil wells as we are for our solar panels. And I know an oil well is going to last a heck of a lot longer than a solar panel. So I think maybe I should hold my remarks till later, but there are an awful lot of like red lights. And I think people have to understand, the people that are here have to understand that we've been cut off at the knees as a council. We cannot do anything on this level. It has already been done. A bunch of unelected bureaucrats have already decided whether or not this is going to do, and we just have to rubber stamp it. As much as I may hate it, there's not much I can do about it. In fact, there's nothing I can do about it. Maybe a couple of setbacks, but that's it. So I'll readdress this later.
Any other council?
I guess I have one question.
Sure.
Through the development permit, can there be a condition? Can that be a condition?
So, through the deputy Reeve to council, as mentioned, two provincial bodies have the overriding authority in terms of decommissioning. When this process goes to circulation, we obviously circulate to the provincial government, who then notes that this is coming forward, this is a condition, and they provide comment. That being said, when they provide comment, I don't know about their internal, the schematics and the mechanics of their internal, but they do have that now on file. So that being said, when there is decommissioning, somewhere along the line, they'll know that that company X, who has a solar facility, when they're going to the end of their life cycle of 25, 30 years, whatever it may be, the provincial government, through that original circulation on file, has the overriding authority to ensure that company X decommissions it back to whatever it may be, whatever state it may be.
Yes, and through the deputy Reeve, securities are withheld. I think it's through Alberta Environment, and then the AUC reviews that with their whole application. Which, as council does know, that once it is approved by the AUC, realistically there isn't that much that council can do at that point, as long as that permit is aligned with the AUC approval. And we have faced this problem here before, so we have sought legal opinion on trying to take additional securities for land reclamation. We've been unsuccessful, and our opinion has told us that we can't, which is unfortunate, which is that maybe just trying to address that piece of securities. But yes, realistically, if it's approved by the AUC and it does come to the county, if that company is in line with the AUC, I forgot the exact piece of the MGA, could be 619. Unfortunately, we kind of just have to go with that one.
I think it's important for public to realize that this council has been proactive in trying to mitigate some of these concerns, only to realize that we don't have that power. we've really tried to look after the residents, landowners' concerns, and yeah, we've been called to task on it, and part of this is changing this bylaw. So we really have tried, and it's the upper levels of government that are, it basically jumps through their hoops and it gets brought to us, and we really can mitigate some minor concerns, but major ones, it's unfortunate.
I could thank Councillor Eckert for voicing very clearly what I was trying to say and our concerns. But I would also point out that Company X that brings through this development doesn't necessarily stay in charge of it for the 25 to 30-year lifespan. And what we've seen in the oil and gas is that Company X sold to Y, sold to Z, sold to Z2, and now Z2 is reneging on their obligations. So it's not as simple as to say Company X will be held for the decommissioning, because that certainly hasn't proven to be true despite all of the regulations in place for oil and gas developments. So.
And through the chair, you're absolutely right. But we don't know what's going to happen in the next 25 to 30 years. The government may step up and put something in place. We don't know that right now. We can only do what we can do now. But any of this that goes forward, the only thing I can say is, like Tom's right, we've been told in a few cases, and that's why we're looking at changing the bylaw so that we don't have to go through the process of a public hearing, because the public hearing is where the public actually has a chance to put their views forward. And if we can't do anything because of that, then we don't want it to come to a public hearing. It has to be handled some other way. That's why some of this is going through. But my suggestion is to any landowner that's signing anything with any of these companies, make sure they have a damn good lawyer writing up the contract, because that's what you're going to be falling back on 10, 15, 20 years. And you're right, they change hands 3, 4, 5 times, and try collecting on it down the road. Hopefully by then there'll be something in place that looks after that. But as of right now, no.
Any further discussion? Anybody else want to speak in opposition to the project? Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing on Bylaw 2021-17. And we will have to figure out what we're going to do here. So we have resolutions before us here. Council's wishes.
Question to staff, first off. With the lessening under these changes, with the lessening of the setbacks, if we put that in the bylaw, then it becomes standard for all of it. If we leave it to the landowner to make those decisions when the company approaches them, then it has to come here for the relaxation. I'm more of the opinion that I would rather see that than have it written in the bylaw that becomes a standard, because it may not work for the next one, and then we'll have them come in. There's no way they can come in and question it. So what is the reason why we're accepting this one landowner and his negotiation with the company to relax the setbacks? And if that's okay with them, then that's fine, but the next one may not, and I hate to see that written in stone somewhere that allows that.
Through the Deputy to Council, the standards, there has to be something in our bylaw for the industry when they apply to AUC, so that they understand what the rules and regulations are. At AUC, and that was one of the directions we got, was that we would be more active as administration as those setbacks, and if they were 300 meters from the property line, for example, that would be what we would go to AUC to represent. Keep in mind, if there is no standard and they relax it, the hearing is at the AUC for setbacks and relaxation. If we don't defend and have something that we can say, this is our bylaw, these are the reasons we have that, we won't be able to justify our rationale to AUC as to why we want those setbacks and work to try to maintain those setbacks. But keep in mind, they hire people to try to say they can mitigate it, but our role was to become active at the AUC public hearing.
I understand that. I guess my question is, we have setbacks now that are greater than what's being suggested.
That's correct.
My suggestion is that we stay at those setbacks.
That's at council's discretion, yes. No, that's,
We don't lower that for everybody, that we have setbacks now that are in place. We can defend them at the AUC. And if they decide to change it, then if they've done it on every single one that comes before them, then fine, then maybe we look at it. But if it's only a case of one, I don't think that it's reasonable. I think we leave the setbacks where they're at.
that works.
So I understand what Ben's saying with the setbacks. Now with that, we'll probably just get overruled on that anyways. Like that's what we went through before.
To council, that certainly is a possibility. But so long as we have, as Manager of Planning just noted, defined parameters in our bylaw, there is some level of defense. I can't predict anything, but it's certainly a possibility at that level.
Because to this point, we haven't been told that our setbacks are unreasonable, right? Or have we been told that our setbacks are unreasonable by them?
Through the chair, yeah, some of the feedback that we've received from both AC and then the industry is that particularly the one that's to the property line that has a dwelling on it, because it's not the dwelling itself, it's the property line. So it could be 800 meters away, and then it applies from the property line as opposed to the dwelling. So we have received that feedback.
Yeah, and we saw, sorry, Jason here, we've seen that feedback from the last AUC decision on the last solar development that we had in the county when they overruled all of our setbacks.
And I did just survey some other, like a broad range of municipalities in Alberta, and I don't think our setbacks are consistent with other municipalities in Alberta, and I believe we've heard that as well from administration. Perhaps administration could confirm.
Through the chair, yes, we can confirm that.
Go ahead.
On page, what is that, 24? We have a minimum of 25 feet from, that's what we changed to the property boundary line. I believe our land use bylaw, top of my head, is 25 feet property line, except that a road allowance is 75. Why not have to a road allowance property line the same as, I would like to see it the same as Ben. For the same reasons, we try and build roads, or they want it down to 25 feet on a particular property. They could come in and ask for a variance like everybody else does, but just to grant, they entered this specific spot in the land use bylaw, a blanket thing down to 25 feet. Are we prepared to do 25 feet for the rest of the bylaw, for the rest of our ratepayers? I think you should be able to defend that, and I think it's a reasonable request.
Makes sense. I believe the one application that we had prior was on a road allowance as well. So that would
Probably is.
Yeah, because they need the road access to get to them. Good discussion.
I think that's quite reasonable.
I just process-wise, I'd like to see a motion on the floor before we discuss anything, because I don't believe there is.
No, there is no motion on the floor at the moment. We need to craft something up.
This is just Brian through the chair. So there's two potential resolutions that council could make. Council could do second reading of bylaw 2021-17, or council could direct administration to prepare further information to bring back for council's consideration on setbacks.
I'd like to make a motion that staff bring back a more detailed thing on setbacks, aligning especially with our current setbacks in the land use bylaw.
So a question to administration.
Go ahead. Discussion.
Okay, thank you. So the question to administration is, no matter what we put on this document, AUC can completely override it. Is that not right? I'm looking at the last thing I looked at. We've got 100-meter towers that are 50 feet from the road, basically, so that tower could fall over and hit them, right? So why bother? Like, this is out of our hands. I think this has to be, the public has to know that we are absolutely neutered on this situation. There's nothing we can do. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Through the chair, in fewer words, yes, that is correct. It is out of our hands, especially when it is approved at the AUC level. The general thought process behind it, for me being a non-planner, would be that if the AUC approves a permit, as long as the applicant doesn't stray from that approval, then the county must approve. And the key word being must.
One of our counselors online wants to speak. Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, thanks. I was just waiting for whatever motion on the floor to arise, and most of what I want to talk about was talked about in the public hearing. I just want to clarify kind of where I stand on it. I think Councillor Eichert really explained it as bluntly as he could, how I think the majority of us feel. I don't think this is to streamline for developers that want to come in to the county. I mean, I think the whole point of this last bylaw was to deter them from coming in, to be quite honest. That was my plan with it. I am disappointed that it didn't work. We got overruled. I mean, we got our hands swatted. That's what it came down to. To get rid of this bylaw or to rewrite it is just to fall in line with the provincial regulations. I mean, like I said earlier, the last time we saw a solar developer bring development in, all of our regulations or distances were thrown out the window. So like Tom said, anything we write in here, it doesn't matter. AUC and the provincial government doesn't care about municipal autonomy. That's what it comes down to. They want to have control over certain developments in the province, and they don't want municipalities to get into the way of that, which is absolutely asinine and shouldn't even be questioned in a Western democratic society. I mean, the grassroots should be the ones with the end say, and sadly our residents are being pushed aside for what AUC has called multiple times in every decision they've made. Every project they've approved is the better good. They don't know what the better good is. Like Tom said, they're a bunch of unelected bureaucrats that get paid to rubber stamp things and then expect us to do the same. So, I mean, and this isn't the only industry that does it. I mean, oil and gas do it, combined feeding operations. There's multiple industries that we don't have a say in, and we're just force-fed provincial bullshit, to be quite honest. And it's horrible. And that's why no matter what we do here, it's not going to matter. They're not going to listen. They want full control over it. So whether we send it back for amendments or pass it here, it won't matter. It's just a rubber stamp for anything coming down the line from here on out. So I apologize to the residents for that, because there's no way for us to change it. We will continue to advocate, but God knows politicians don't listen to the grassroots very often. So I do encourage everyone to call their MLAs, but I don't really know what else to do.
Thank you. Councillor Kester.
Well, I agree a certain amount. There's other parts I don't agree with. And I'll go by on past experience. There was a mixing plant went up out in Ben's area on the 270. They built it right in the road ditch. They had piles of dirt piled up there in their tanks, and it was a safety concern. We couldn't see the trucks coming out. The approach was going downhill. Of course, it was oil and gas. We were notified, like we always are, but no conditions. They built the thing. We were upset. It was about time we got our fingers slapped for another bylaw we had. Anyway, that company was held to tax. They didn't have to move the pipelines or anything, but they had to go in there and rearrange that dirt, try and make that approach safer than it was. They did what they could, and it still probably wouldn't approve us now. But it woke up the people developing out there in the province that they have to adhere to some of our bylaws too when it comes to safety and construction on our thing. So it's no different here, depending on the site. If we don't have it, we just say, oh, do whatever the AUC says, I find that unacceptable. We could hold at least to the minimum we hold all our ratepayers to. It's safe public roads. And if the AUC comes along and says, oh, you don't have to listen to it in this case, then it's on their head, but at least we give it a try. So again, I support the resolution that the staff come back with a motion taken into light minimum setbacks. I think they should align with everything in the county. And if the county decides to change it from 25 feet to 50 feet or whatever the number is in a future, then it applies to everybody, not just a certain home builder and the thing holds through to intensive livestock operations too. They have setbacks they should meet. I know we can't impose them, but I believe the approving authorities, when they look at it in the light of county-wide. When the ILOs first come in, it was because municipalities weren't allowing them anymore. So you were supposed to make a bylaw or a land use thing where you would allow them. And the county did. And some counties said, we won't allow them anywhere. Well, it was tested and they lost all control. So I know we got our fingers slapped, but it is still our responsibility to try.
Yeah, and through the chair, just to add to, to what Councillor Kester said, when we had our fingers slapped, it was because we refused the development.
Yeah.
The total development, not the conditions within the development. Those were part of it after the fact. But changing the bylaw to allow these companies in is one thing, but allowing them to do whatever they want on the lease when they're there or on the lands while they're there is not. And I agree with Glenn. We got our fingers slapped because we refused the development completely. It wasn't because of the conditions within the bylaw or within the development permit. It was because we were refusing the application completely. So I don't have a problem supporting where Glenn's coming from and having staff bring back something, show that it does align with our other setbacks. So if I come in here with if I decide to build come in here with an acreage development, and why can't I have the same setbacks as we're given industry? The same safety issues apply. It doesn't matter whether it's an industry or a private residence. So I agree with Glenn to bring it back and make sure that it aligns with all of our setbacks that we have.
And myself, I support your motion, Glenn, because the reasons that we're discussing here, and we represent the people. We're the councillors that we deal with the landowners directly. All these other boards don't have the connection that we do. And I think it's important that we uphold what people want and at least try to. And there is a process that they can, staff have to go to appeal it, and we have to support it, and we just have to be aware of that and be able to defend it. And I think if we do some concrete work, I'd give them some footwork to do that. So
I agree with you, Scott. I think if we give staff time to work on this, and then we can defend what we do choose, and it's reasonable, then I guess we get more, I think we'll have more clout at AUC.
So the question to administration. So we put these setbacks in, and I understand what you guys are saying, that I'm taking a defeatist attitude because I do not believe that AUC is going to, because there's no consequence to AUC, to if they decide to ignore our setbacks. There's nothing there. We're not asking about an individual building a feedlot or building a house or whatever. This is the government that is going to say, the producer wants this here, it's going to be here. And there's nothing we can do about that. I'm fine. I'm going to support it. I love your optimism. I know that I'm going to be right in the end, but I love your optimism. But yeah, no, it's AUC is a board unto themselves. And I don't know if we've in the past, this has to be communicated to the Premier. This has to be, I mean, we are being, the ratepayer is being subjected to decisions that are, so we've got, sorry, I'll try to get this to in my head here. We've got, decisions are being made about wind and solar right now that we are all the repercussions, all the bad things are going to be laid out to the ratepayers. They're not going to be related out to the owners. This has got orphan well written all over it. I don't understand why no one can see why this is just a disaster waiting to happen, and it's going to happen. It won't happen probably in my lifetime, and if it does, I won't remember it. So, but this is going to be, none of these things will support themselves. We're not taking any money. We're not taking enough money to decommission, and I've seen the numbers on what it costs to decommission a solar array. It is a huge number. To expect the landowner to pay for that is foolishness, and we have to address this to the government. We at least have to get this on paper to the government that this is foolishness. That the guy that's getting his land lease payments right now, he isn't going to take everything from his land lease payments and not use it. He's going to use it to subsidize his farming operation and everything else. And then when this thing needs to be removed, who's going to be there to remove it when it can't be, when the landowner can't afford to do it? I mean, we have this in our own backyards with a composting facility. We know that the amount of money that was taken in securities is not going to pay for the amount of money that it's going to cost to decommission that composting. We're just doing this wide open. I mean, I don't know. 100-meter towers with 150-meter blades on it, maybe that looks like technology to people. It's an eyesight, it's an eyesore to me. When those things have to come down, when they're no longer turning, and you just have to go to California, just go to Palm Springs, and just look what that countryside is just littered with. It's horrible, it's hideous. Because why? No one's got the money to take anything down. We just put bigger ones up. Well, eventually, the taxpayer ain't going to have the money to pay for this stuff. So, I don't know. I think we have to send a letter to the Premier, to the province, to say, who is going to pay for this? It shouldn't be us. And I know that the energy companies aren't on the hook for this, because they're just going to do exactly the same thing as our current energy companies do, which is sell the liability. Because somebody's always will buy it, because there's always $1 in it to do that. So I'm good with what Glenn is suggesting, but I also think we as council have to sit down and figure out, we have to contact the province, because it is not right that some bureaucrat makes a decision that impacts me, and I do not have any fallback on that. I mean, am I not supposed to be looking out at the future? None of this stuff pays. We know this. It's, I'm sorry for the rant, but so council should send a letter to and I mean a severely worded letter, and I think it should be every one of these people that took time to write letter. I agree with them 100%, but I have no power here. I can't do nothing. We've sat down there and we've got solar panels here that people just absolutely hate, and it looks like we've okayed it. We haven't. We've been forced to okay them. End of rant.
Can I jump onto Tom's rant?
Yes, last one.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with Tom. I do think something has to be said, but to me, it's not even just about the reclamation or the setbacks or anything like that. It's how AUC values certain things when they're making those decisions. I mean, last development we had was on Class 2 farmland with potential of irrigation. The next development that will be coming up is we're the next neighbors between the two that you guys heard, and I won't be on council to vote for it, so I don't even care what they think. But I mean, that piece of land is irrigated right now. There's infrastructure, there's a tie-in, and I guarantee AUC hasn't said no to a project yet for the greater good, whatever that means on their side. They have to learn how to value farmland. And we've heard from legal that they don't know how to accurately value farmland. Irrigation is only 2% of the total land in the world, and they want to throw solar panels on it? I'm sorry, that makes no sense, especially when there's infrastructure there. I mean, I fully agree with Tom. We have to get the word out, and I'm not fighting Glenn's motion. I mean, like I said, no matter what we do, I honor his positive attitude towards it, but I'm more calm that it probably won't do much. But I fully support that. But like I said, I also support Tom's idea of sending a letter outlining our problems with the process and how certain things are valued on the AUC side to the process. So,
thank you.
Deputy Reeve Carlson.
Go ahead.
Reeve Link.
Go ahead, Amber.
I have two questions. Thank you. Through the chair, I have two questions, both in consideration of the motion that's on the floor, and then I do just have a couple of comments as well. Both questions to staff. Did you examine the setbacks that you have proposed included in this land use bylaw proposed amendment? Did you compare those to make sure that they are consistent with other districts or uses within our land use bylaw? I'll ask that one first.
If you could answer that, please.
Absolutely. Yeah, through the chair, the research is based on other similar rural municipalities throughout Alberta, so it wasn't necessarily whether or not it complies in our own land use bylaw with like an accessory building, for example. It was, are those uses similar to, or is the setback similar to other uses in other municipalities?
Okay.
So just further to that, then, with regard to specific uses within our land use bylaw, I was madly searching and cross-referencing between different uses and that type of thing, and I do see diversity like amongst our setbacks that we set. A question to administration, when you're setting setbacks, I would assume that that would be more specific to the use or to the district itself than necessarily consistent across our land use bylaw itself. Is that accurate?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. So obviously a dwelling or an accessory building would have different setbacks from a stormwater pond. And in this situation, the solar facilities have different setbacks than the wind facilities.
Okay. I'll just for context for my questions, I have no problem like directing staff or the motion directing staff to spend some more time on this, but I do know that our administrative team has spent significant amount of time already considering the proposed changes that they've brought forward to us, and I don't want to make work or have them redo work that's already been done. My second question was regarding the setback. From the work that you have done, do you think it would be defendable to either leave the setbacks as they currently are set or increase them from what you're proposing in the changes? Would that be defendable? And I guess I don't want to be defeatist either. I will put all effort into what I think is right in terms of governance over land use in Alberta. But I also recognize that the authority, obviously, of the AUC and the ESO and all of the different provincial bodies that oversee renewable energy development obviously supersedes our authorities. So while I think it's important that we register our concerns, I don't want to put something in place in our land use bylaw that we don't firmly believe is defendable. So would increased setbacks be defendable in your opinion?
Through the chair, that is indeed tough to say. I think part of the rationale for what we've proposed isn't necessarily to say, that we know in any particular situation what the exact setback should be. The idea is that this is a discussion between the county, area residents, the proponents, AUC, whatever it might be. And in one particular situation, it could be that a smaller setback is appropriate. In other situations, it may need to be larger. The idea, and from what we saw from the way the previous ones were worded, especially, was that, and particularly the one that deals with the property boundary as opposed to the house or the dwelling itself, is that many proponents would see that and say that, well, this isn't feasible, so why should we even look at these setbacks? The idea was to come up with a set of setbacks that was workable as a sort of a bare minimum, and then use that as a starting platform, if you will, to have a discussion to, again, look at every particular area. Do we need a relaxation in this area? Is a smaller one in this area appropriate? Do we need to increase it because of a dwelling or whatever it might be? So that was the idea, in order just to have a genuine conversation.
Thank you for that. And then just a couple of comments, if I may, Deputy Reeve Carlson.
Go ahead.
So one of the reasons that I also supported bringing this forward is, well, we have responsibility over governance of land use for land uses that are within our jurisdiction. We're constantly striving to balance that with landowner rights, and that includes landowner rights of adjacent landowners, but it also includes landowner rights who may want to consider development of their land, whether that be for a renewable development or another type of development. We try and keep some flexibility within our agriculture zoning in particular, so that we can contribute to sustainability of our agricultural producers, knowing that at times off-farm income or alternative income sources can actually contribute to sustainability for our farmers and our ranchers. And I know that that's been a conscious decision within our land use bylaw to do that. What I had heard from some landowners is that what we had put in place was actually infringing on landowner rights who were looking to do some renewable development on their land. And as we just saw with the wind development that we've been considering, we do have several landowners within Wheatland County who are pursuing that. And what I actually did hear from some landowners is that our current setbacks, as they were set in the energy district, were precluding that development and not making it possible for them to develop their land in the way that they would choose to do so. And sort of our own personal opinions or analysis of renewable aside, that is something that I will defend, is those landowner rights, provided that the impacts on the adjacents are mitigated. And when I looked at the setbacks that were provided, some things that I did appreciate that administration brought forward is moving to things like 2 times the total height of the tower. I think that's critical, particularly given the increase in size of towers that we're starting to see. Things like minimums from base, those types of things, rather than set numbers, because we really are seeing significant increases in heights of towers where you could even actually see our previous setbacks that were set that were actually sort of discrete numbers, where they may actually, not currently, but at some point in the future, not be even safe or reasonable if you had a tower that, for example, exceeded the height of one of our setbacks. So I really liked that administration, for the most part, used references to either like the base or the height of the tower. I did have a concern because we do have a set number for the proposed setback from a residential dwelling at 175 meters. So I would fully support the motion on the floor, just to ensure that we do have the setbacks right, because I think that is key. From my opinion, they need to be defendable. We need to have a strong rationale for why we are setting our setback at the either ratio or the number that we're setting them at, so that when we are spending time defending a development or impacts from a development at the AUC, that we have a strong rationale to do so. There's been a lot of conversation around advocacy. I certainly support Councillor Eichert's idea of a letter to the Premier or to the Government of Alberta. This is something that we are hearing all across Alberta. I do just want to remind Council, we do have a couple of RMA resolutions that were supported fully by the RMA membership, and knowing that they have that weight of all rural municipalities of Alberta behind them, and that RMA is continuously advocating on them. One is specifically regarding decommissioning costs for wind energy development. That came forward in 2018 at our fall convention. It will expire this December, so it's important to keep that in mind. And we do also have a solar power reclamation that came forward spring of 2019, and that will be active and be integrated into RMA advocacy until April of 2022. One element, and this was just from a quick review, so there is a chance that I missed it as well, but it goes to Councillor Wilson's comments around the AUC recognizing and integrating the analysis of the importance of our farmland into their decision making. And so I will do a more thorough review of the RMA active resolution, but I know I have been hearing that from other municipalities as well. I won't be surprised if we don't have a resolution if one comes forward at our fall convention. If not, I might suggest that even rather than a letter to the Government of Alberta, if Council might consider a resolution, sort of in that context of asking that the Government of Alberta ensure that the AUC is weighing the importance of farmland. There is something, like I feel like something did come forward around soil class 1 and class 2 and that type of thing. I know I have been involved in some advocacy with RMA. We just met recently with the Alberta Land Institute to see how we can further some of that. And I was really stressing that agricultural perspective. One thing that I don't understand is why are we considering, for example, solar development on agricultural land if there's not, for example, solar arrays on all the rooftops that we have available or that type of thing. I know some cities say that it can, affect the aesthetic and that type of thing, but that's certainly a consideration in rural areas as well. So from an advocacy perspective, I would certainly fully support Council looking into that more, seeing if there's an area that we can continue to advocate. In terms of those securities, that is key. My understanding at this point is that the Government of Alberta does not collect securities. However, they did in 2020 tighten up some of the reclamation legislation and the AEP requirements for reclamation certificates and that type of thing. It's fairly complex, obviously, outside of our jurisdiction, but the securities is a primary example, and Ms. Hilton gave the perfect example, and I think Councillor Eichert referenced it as well. We cannot allow this to become another orphan well issue that we're experiencing across Alberta, and for that to be on the backs of Albertan taxpayers when it really should be being handled responsibly by industry as part of their development. So I recognize that was very long-winded. I echo all of the concerns that we've heard today. It's incredibly frustrating as land use, through Municipal Planning Commission and through Council, lacking that jurisdiction to sort of have that local consideration to impacts, but I also recognize that we don't want to have redundancies in government where you have, different layers of government making the same decisions. So I do support that. There was a question in one of the letters in the correspondence regarding this, asking about industry lobbying or influence. I can speak for myself. I've had no interaction with anybody in industry regarding this bylaw or changing our land use bylaw. There's been no lobbying, certainly no fiscal incentives or things like that. That needs to be very clear that local government works very autonomously. We're here, like Jason said, we're grassroots. We listen to our ratepayers. It's very frustrating for this council that we're considering this, but this arose really out of the frustration that we experienced when we were holding public hearings for redesignation, where we had very, very little jurisdiction and had such a limited scope as to what we could hear from our landowners, and that frustration there. And then when we recognized that we could exercise that jurisdiction at the development permit stage. And so I think it is important to recognize that we still will be having development permit applications come forward, and that we will still have some authority at that stage in terms of conditions and impact to roads. And I know administration has been exploring the possibility of securities as well, but it is somewhat of a gray area because this is somewhat new. Ideally, that would be handled at a provincial level, but if need be, it is something that we're exploring at a municipal level as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, we've been talking a lot about solar energy, but there's also wind energy out there, and to see, I just want clarification that, and that's why I support Glenn's motion, that we changed a district here a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, whatever it was, so they can install their wind towers. I would just hate to see that because they're coming in here and putting up bigger wind towers, that they can build them closer to a residence than the ones that are already in existence out there. And the ones that are in existence did it through our previous bylaw and had no issue with it. So I don't see why we couldn't defend that same process and maintain at least that same distance that those ones that are currently in place have to maintain. I don't see where it makes any benefit to us to allow them to change that setback from residential areas at the same time as they're putting in bigger units, which has their own issue. But so I still say, yeah, I support Glenn's to make sure that these setbacks are reasonable and they line up with everything else we have in the municipality. We can defend them. They can come down, if we change them, they can come down. So the next guy comes in and lowers them again, and they'll come down and tell us again. So we may as well make a stand on this one and say, this is where we want them to be. You come out and tell us that we can't have it there. That's the way I look at it.
Okay, there's a question on the floor. Does anybody need any clarification on the question? Because we've had lots of discussion.
Could we just have the motion read once more, Deputy Reeve Carlson?
Sure. Can you read the motion again, Glenn, or?
Didn't write it down. I just want staff
or state. Sorry, it doesn't have to be read.
Align our current setbacks and the land use bylaw, make it straight across for every district in the line. And if they're not the same, to comment as why.
Is that enough clarification for staff?
Through the Deputy Reeve, yes, it is. And just a note, we will be bringing the additional information back to the October 5th council meeting. As this is an open bylaw, it has to be with this council.
Everybody understands? Okay, I'd like to call the question. Again, it's an opposition vote. If there is opposition, then we will call a roll call. So is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing none, hearing none, that's carried. Thank you. I think that we've had a lengthy go here. I think we should take at least a 5-minute break. So let's go to 10:25. Recess to 10:25.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm giving a 1-minute warning. We'll be back.
And you and I understand it, but it won't be on the hill, because if we don't start it, we're sitting down there figuring out a new generation, because this is the...
So our hands haven't been slapped with a condition.
Yeah.
Mute off.
This is different. Yeah.
We're just going to give Dawn a moment to come back.
At the, you just,
Yeah, I hope so. I'll try and keep my mouth shut. Yeah. Oh, is there? Well, if it's going to be 2, I might not be here. If that's all it's going to take.
Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order. Everybody's back in place. We're moving on to first reading and bylaw 2021-20, land redesignation. You're ready
Good
to
morning,
go.
Council. Sherry Bars with Planning and Development here to present first reading of Bylaw 2021-20. The subject parcel is 91.76 acres in size and is located directly east of Speargrass. It has accesses from Township Road 220 and Highway 817. The development proposal is to redesignate 59.82 acres from agricultural general to direct control district, with 31.94 acres remaining agricultural general to facilitate an aging in place community. Staff circulated the application to external agencies, internal departments, and to adjacent landowners within 2 miles of the subject parcel. Comments received to date are found in the comment summary on page 66 of the agenda package. Staff will work with the applicant to resolve any concerns received. The Cara Area Concept Plan was approved by Council on January 12, 2021. It's the guiding document for this proposed direct control district that will facilitate the future development of the seniors community. The direct control bylaw proposes 2 development cells designed to be flexible based on market demand as to where construction will begin within the cell. Cell 1 will provide for independent living cottages, multi-unit residential care homes, gathering spaces, and a community center with associated amenities to serve the community. Cell 2 is primarily residential development with independent living cottages and multi-unit residential care homes. The build-out of the CAR development envisions a population of approximately 750 people, which includes the residents and employees living on site. Technical reports and studies were submitted in support of the development, indicating that the proposed development can be serviced and is suitable for the intended use. Servicing for the proposed development will be via piped municipal water and wastewater servicing, connecting to the Carsland, Speargrass water and wastewater systems. The roads within the CAR development will be private with maintenance, with the responsibility of the CAR Foundation. Access to the proposed development is from Highway 817 via Range Road 253B, which is proposed to run parallel to and east of Highway 817. The proposed access is dependent on AT's realignment design for the Highway 24 and Highway 817 intersection. There's an emergency access that will be provided by an existing gravel approach off Township Road 220. This access is intended to be utilized for emergency access only. For stormwater, the subject parcel contains several man-made ponds which will be used for the overall stormwater management of the proposed development. The storm ponds will be designed to be an amenity for providing attractive community green spaces for the residents. The proposed development aligns with the relevant policies, guidelines, and objectives of the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, the Vulcan Wheatland County Intermunicipal Development Plan, the county's Regional Growth Management Strategy, and the Municipal Development Plan. In conclusion, staff is recommending that Council grant first reading of Bylaw 2120 and that a public hearing be scheduled for October 5th. that council has before them the three options. They can recommend approval, not approve it, or approve an alternative recommendation. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question just before I do the recommendation. Alberta Environment said, please be advised that within the proposed development area of the southwest quarter section, only the bed or shore of the permanent natural occurring watercourse identified as DRO1.
Yes, this was the same that was identified during the area concept plan, but the ponds are man-made, and we did do the further report, and they'll finalize that at the development permit stage, and we'll follow the recommendations and work with AEP.
So I'd like to move that council grant first reading for bylaw 2021-20, and that the public, that's resolution number 2.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that's carried. We have a second resolution attached
I'll move
to
that
this.
the public hearing for bylaw 2021-20 be scheduled for October 5th, 2021 at 9 a.m.
In Wheatland County Council chambers.
Would they be added?
There is a motion on the floor. I'll call the question. Any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that's carried. We'll move on to an amendment of bylaw 2019-08.
Yes, good morning, Council. Brian from Administration. On page 68 of your agenda package is the start of a couple of amendments to lending bylaws to the seed cleaning plants. At the last council meeting, there was a request from council to bring forward a amendment to the lending bylaws to allow for a provision for both Hazar and Strathmore seed cleaning plants to defer payments up to 1 year interest-free. So with those payments, what we have done is we have just deferred the loan schedule back 1 year. The bylaw is in the package, and the first one we're going to address is the one from Hazar. So both very similar. Strathmore had a 15-year loan agreement. Hazar had a 10. Just push the payments back a year. If there's any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, staff?
I'll move first reading.
We have a motion on the floor to move first reading. Any discussion on that motion? Don't see any. Call the question. Any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that's carried. We'll move on to the next one, amendment to bylaw 2012-017.
Yes, Council, Brian from Administration again. Same preamble as before. This is just a bylaw to amend the lending provisions to the Strathmore seed cleaning plant. If there's any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. Any questions?
I'll move first.
Cleveland will move the recommendation to approve first reading.
Glenn beats to it, Amber. Glenn has motion on the floor for first reading. Any discussion? Not, I'll call the question. Any opposition? Okay, that's carried. Move on to bylaw 2021-26.
Yes, good morning, Council. Brian again. Page 76 of your agenda package. This is a new borrowing bylaw that also has a lending bylaw right after it. This was one that was requested by the Drumheller and District Solid Waste Management Association. So this is for refurbishment of 2 trans stores and the replacement of one. One of the trans stores, it's either the new or refurbished one is going to be going in Hazar. So the provisions that we set out in this bylaw are just the normal standard ones. We worked with Tammy Nygaard from the Drumheller and District Solid Waste to come up with the loan repayments. You may notice that the interest rate is not to exceed 5%. That's just a general provision in there. The interest rate should come in significantly lower. It's just a requirement of the MGA. If there are any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Looking for a motion?
I'll so move.
Councillor Armstrong has moved the motion. It's on the floor. Any questions on the motion? Discussion? I'll call the question. Any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that's carried. We shall move on to Bylaw 2021-27.
Morning, Council. Brian again. So page 81 of your agenda package is this the mirroring bylaw for lending the amount to the Drumheller and District Solid Waste Management Association. So realistically, the processes for all 4 of these bylaws that just have been presented is that first reading occurs, we advertise for 2 weeks, then we bring back second and third. If there's any questions, please let me know.
Thank you.
Move first reading.
First reading is presented by Councillor Armstrong. Any questions, comments, clarification? Okay, I'll call the question. Any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that's carried. So we shall move on to the Reeves report. Amber.
Thank you. My report's in the
Chair
packet.
Carlson, sorry to interrupt. I believe the next point that we would pop over to is unfinished business or business arising. There should be 2 points.
Sorry, I jumped over. My apologies.
There was the
I wasn't ready. Brian?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, my apologies. We should be at 2.3 unfinished business arising. And we have the one about the A277. Their presentation or just from Councillor Eichert? Does everybody have the information first?
Yeah, was that?
I can speak.
Yeah, can.
Absolutely.
Hi, this is Margaret. Just to clarify, the 2.3.1 was to do with the land use bylaw. I believe Councillor Eichert brought it forward for the CSA.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Perfect. So, Matt from administration, I'll just preface this first. Council had directed administration at a previous council meeting to look into the potential for land use bylaw amendments to allow renovated mobile homes without a CSA 8277 certification. After that, I had circulated a memo to council providing some background and options in terms of moving forward with respect to renovated mobile homes without a CSA certification. Within that memo, I had crafted potential possibilities in terms of moving forward, in terms of a path forward to amend the land use bylaw. A couple definitions within that memo that I had suggested require amendment, just because there is alluding to A277. Previous to this memo, council may recall that we did look to more so strengthening the A277 aesthetic purposes and all of that, but we took that into consideration as staff and we kept the high standard of aesthetics without providing kind of that hump for potential applicants to go through with respect to A277. We've been finding more and more mobile homes and the rest, they get brought into the county. Applicants don't have that A277 certification, and it's pretty much black and white as written right now. So a couple things that we need to do in terms of moving forward. We have to amend the definitions and regulations regarding mobile homes. There's 2 in the LUB, and that's not an issue to do. And revise development permit application requirements for manufactured homes. So those 2 steps, the first one obviously in terms of amending the definitions is one that administration is recommending that council direct us to do. And those are found within the memo. And then the LUB amendments could also consider additional requirements should a landowner wish to move an older mobile home not currently permitted by requiring a pre-inspection of the applicant's expense. So that means that should a a landowner wished to have a safety code inspector come out, they could do so at their discretion, and staff would advise them to do so if it's an older mobile home, just to check for the structural integrity and all of that, so long as our LUB permits that and allows it, in terms of removing the CSA 277 definition. So a little bit to go through, but it's not that much in terms of amending the land use bylaw. So we're prepared to do that as administration.
Thank you. And the reason I brought this forward was I think we have to give the ratepayers the option. There's a lot of, like me being in the construction business, I understand that you can have a mobile home that doesn't have the certification, which can be as good a shape as a new one if it's been taken care of and if it's been renovated to standards and that kind of stuff. It probably won't fill all the levels that, there's probably still going to be some people that are not going to be happy, but I think it gives the opportunity to anybody that wants to move. There should be no reason that if you've got a mobile home that you can move that looks is aesthetically pleasing and as far as you can tell on an inspection that it is up to code. I mean, I'm of the opinion that if you can get insurance for it, then that should no longer be our responsibility for it. So I really like the way this has gone. It gives people that are trying to move out onto the land another option, or it gives people that are trying to, keep their kids on the land and without a massive cost of building new, because with the price of everything, it's getting expensive. So yeah, I really like this, and I thank you very much for the work you've done on it. So I would like to make a motion that council direct administration to review and prepare amendments to the land use bylaw 2016-01 to allow renovated mobile homes that do not have CSA A277 certification to be pre-inspected and permitted within the appropriate land use districts.
Okay, thank you. Motions on the floor, discussions, questions?
This is a bylaw amendment, and it takes a public hearing type thing?
Through the Deputy Reeve, that is correct. Just for Councillor Kester, to your question, we do have a whole suite of land use bylaw amendments. We've documented them, so we're going to bring them forward. This will just get added to the... Yep.
So I just have a couple of questions here, and I guess we can answer it when we come with this, but I'd like to see something about when the A277 date came into, I think it was 2001. How many people are requesting that we've had to turn away because they don't meet that? And I think the most important thing for us is the aesthetic part of it, if we're going to go down this road. And what kind of ramifications or how we can uphold that to make sure it gets done.
Yeah, and through the chair, just further to that, I agree with the aesthetic, but I also am just, I guess, a question to administration. In the briefing, it does reference that once a mobile home is delivered to its installation site, it's difficult for a safety codes officer to determine whether or not the mobile complies with the Alberta Building Code. And then I guess my question is just adding...
Amber, could you repeat that first part? It kind of got garbled there.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Just echoing your comments, Deputy Reeve Carlson, aesthetics certainly are important and would need to be referenced, but as well just in recognizing that as a municipality in Alberta that has taken on the jurisdiction over the safety codes, and then the comments in the briefing regarding once a mobile home is delivered to its installation site, it's difficult for a safety codes officer to determine whether or not the mobile complies with Alberta Building Code. Just wondering if administration can reference how we'll continue our responsibility for that. I understand not all municipalities in Alberta provide the safety code services. Some of that is contracted, and I recognize that we kind of contract as well, but just how we will continue that responsibility.
Absolutely, and good question, Reeve. So through the Deputy Reeve to Council, the second part of the report that I submitted to Council looks at revised development permit application requirements for manufactured homes. Within that revised step that staff will have in working with a future applicant / landowner, we will have first and foremost, the question of the 8277 certification. If it's not on there, a part of that is we will ensure that the information provided to the landowner with respect to reaching out to safety codes is a component of it. Obviously, that's a component of safety codes inspection, is a component of any development. So this would just be in order to ensure that the structural integrity and safety codes, building code is upheld. So that safety component is part of the entire process, and we just need to amend and revise the development permit application requirements to that in that regard. As you mentioned, obviously with safety codes, they do have an authority, so they are the authority over jurisdiction on any matter, irrespective of the fact that if there's an 8277 certificate or not. So we just have to amend that process at the DP stage, and so we have the fulsome information. The inspection is at the landowner's cost as well, so that does come with a cost. I think it's $100 or $200, but nonetheless, that process is essential to uphold the structural integrity and the safety of the structure.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. We'll move on to 2.32. There's a letter from Neho County. It was our email that Amber had sent before, and it's from their CAO. It says, on behalf of Ray Whipstock, Neho County is looking for a seconder to the attached resolution. Neho County will be considering the resolution at the September meeting of September 14th. As stated in the attachment, the resolution builds and expands on the previous resolution from Wheatland County. The attachment has been vetted through policy group at RMA to ensure it's not a duplicate motion. I don't know, Amber, did you want to speak to that?
No, just if people have had an opportunity to review it, I was just hoping I'll put a motion on the floor for consideration that Wheatland County second Neho County's resolution increasing knowledge sharing among regulators of cannabis production facilities for the RMA District 2 Central meeting, and if it passes there, at the RMA Fall Convention. And I support the work that Neho has done. This was raised at the District Mayors and Reeves meeting. I did let them know that we had a previous resolution regarding this, that FCM has multiple resolutions regarding this, and RMA and FCM continue to advocate for this issue. And I think Neho did an excellent job of kind of pinpointing that really another element of this is that we need that information sharing, and just how critical that is for sort of our responsibilities that we have in delineating jurisdiction and that type of thing. So I fully support the resolution that they're bringing forward, and just ask council to consider seconding it.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Any discussion or further questions on the motion? If not, I will call the question. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that is carried. Now I can move on to the Reeves report. Go ahead.
Thank you. I have the wrong file open in front of me. My report for July and August are included in the package. Just a couple of highlights. It was a really good summer just for getting out to some events and different activities throughout the county and in neighboring municipalities. There was a really good Wheatland and area surface rates meeting. I want to say they had approximately, I didn't count, but Ben was there too, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 people that attended, and they had a consultant that will work with landowners to advocate and to work with the Surface Rights Board regarding collecting their lease payments, I did share just some information on behalf of the county regarding unpaid taxes and just the scale of oil and gas development in the county. Continued challenges with the Cmrb. You'll see that at the July meeting, 3 Rocky View County applications to amend their municipal development plan, as well as a couple of outdated area structure plans, were defeated by the board, despite being recommended by administration based on the third-party consultant assessment of those applications. Had an opportunity to attend a rural crime town hall with Minister Maddie and Munson. A lot of discussion around potential benefits from the government of Alberta's perspective with a provincial police force, and some good dialogue there regarding rural crime. Just want to extend thanks to everyone that's been involved in the build on the Carlson Fire Hall. It was excellent to tour it and just to see the efficiencies that were there, both in terms of the fiscal efficiencies. I'm glad to see that it's on time and on or under budget, but as well just some of the thoughtfulness that's gone into it in terms of decontamination and safety and efficiency for our firefighters, as well as the foresight and thoughtfulness about what might be required in the future and considerations. I was really impressed. I think all of council was. I was very last minute asked to attend a meeting with the RCMP Chief Superintendent in Glycerin, and the Chief Superintendent reviewed several RCMP initiatives that they have actively going on within the province, as well as some that they're hoping to initiate in the Glycerin and Siksika area. And Siksika Nation was at that meeting, as well as Glycerin RCMP. Had some really good discussions around some of the challenges in the area and sort of a solution-focused conversation there. Just want to express gratitude for our RCMP detachments that serve Line County. And we will further update and process them, but CAO Henderson and myself would meet with the CAO and Mayor of the town of Strathmore and have some further discussions around cost sharing. Marigold 2, our seeing the progress on the builds that they're sharing with the WID in the town of Strathmore. That's coming along well and is also on time and on budget. They're really focusing on just the essentials for the build, and then we'll look at kind of the nice to have later. So I was really happy to hear about that focus. Happy to answer any questions, and I will move my report be accepted as presented.
Thank you. Any questions for the Reeves report? Not. Call the question. Any opposition? Motion on the floor. Seeing none, hearing none, that is carried. My report is on page 92 of the council package. To the July 20th, our WRC board meeting, the governance review that council had this council had set some money aside for WRC to do. The board has decided, and I had supported it, and it was unanimous, that we postpone it until next year. There's been a large volume of changes done at WRC at the moment, and we just want to see how that trickles down and settles in, and see how the board members or everybody's on the same page. I golfed in Lethbridge with Alberta Transportation, got to network with a lot of the contractors and realized that I'm absolutely terrible at golf and it's not my sport, but I will continue to try. That's it. If there's any questions, please ask. If not, I will remove my report.
Sorry, Deputy Reeve, can you just clarify about the WRC, what you said? I'm sorry.
Mostly about the governance review. It was discussed at the board, and the board had decided to set the governance review off, postpone it for a year because of the lot of changes in how we're doing things, and the county's doing some work, and just want to see how that all shakes out here. Does that answer your question? Tom might be able to clarify too.
Yeah, just
Yeah. Personally, I'm not sure that I can, support that decision on behalf of council, just based on sort of what's been brought back from board members and concerns that have been raised at a council level. But it might be possibly best to have that conversation just in closed session, given sort of intergovernmental relations, that perspective.
Understood.
Yeah, I just want to, the reason there's been a whole different scope of work that has been, like everything has changed with the county having its own utility operators and all that kind of stuff. So I believe it's probably wise that we left it, we pushed it a year down the road, because everything is, the scope of work we can find out now that it will give us a year's more information on how this is all going to work out and all that kind of stuff. It looks to me like it's a positive move for WRC, because they are now in their field of operation. They're not going to another, like everything centers around the plant in Standard and the water that's produced by the plant in Standard. So I thought it was a wise decision, so I voted for it also.
Okay, my motion's on the floor. Any further questions? If not, I will call the question. Any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that's carried. Division 1, Councillor report. Do you have a report?
No, I haven't been there for 3 weeks.
Nothing to report. I will move on. Division 3, Councillor report.
Yes, it is. Actually, I want to give a update on the Canadian Badlands.
Absolutely.
So, for a little bit of background, Canadian Badlands has been branded for years, and when I got on the board, it was a combination of 60 some municipalities that were members, and as the branding for the Canadian Badlands over the year has been mostly focused on dinosaurs and hoodoos, it has been very difficult for some of the municipalities to carry on tourism in a location that had fields of wheat, and so the Canadian Badlands has been struggling, and some of the municipalities were not joining up anymore. The membership was going down. And then when COVID hit, we decided that we would do hire a consultant and have workshops and look and revision and in the end restructure the Canadian Badlands. Canadian Badlands is very, very well known internationally and federally. So it's important that we kept it, but we want to keep it in somewhere where it would be sustainable in the years to come. And the outcome from the consultants was there was 3 options. So at the last board meeting, what has happened is there was a notice of motion to dissolve the Canadian Badlands Limited, as it is being governed now. So what the consultant had said, and what we all feel, is that Canadian Badlands is not really owned by a municipality, it's a region. It's a region somewhat like Canadian Rockies. Anyone can, there's lots of tourism agencies within the Canadian Rockies that bring in visitors into that region. And it's, of course, the Canadian Badlands is not owned by anybody, but it's branded very well. Same situation as with Canadian Badlands. So on next Monday, we're having a special meeting. At this special meeting, there's certain guidelines that our bylaws must withhold. So the motion must be supported by 75% of the membership. Our membership now is down to 43 municipalities. And we would need, each municipality has one vote. And if the dissolution is passed, membership fees that were given for 2021 will be given back. And what would happen is they would be, the limited will be dissolved, but we've been in contact and lots of discussion with Travel Alberta and the government of Alberta, actually. And they will continue to promote and develop the Canadian Badlands, but they will do it underneath the brand. And if anybody wants to use the Canadian Badlands, leave it on their signs. If they have a location that in their municipality that is, covers the brand and they want to use it to promote tourism, they're more than welcome to, just as the Rockies. So Travel Alberta has put out a 3-year plan for tourism, and this fits very well into that plan. They will develop in clusters. They're trying to look for places where they can work and develop industry in certain areas, and the Canadian Badlands is the perfect second location. What's happening right now is people will come in internationally, go to the Rockies, and then go to BC. We need to somehow have another arm in Alberta to help tourism in Alberta, and the Badlands is branded well enough that they feel that that's what they're going to start promoting and work with. So there will be no governance with the Badlands, no ownership, no website. It'll work just like the Canadian Rockies. If there's any questions about that. I think it's a very positive way for the Canadian Badlands to go. I mean, it was very hard for some municipalities to have the Canadian Badlands name, especially on their sign, when there's, miles and miles of wheat fields. It's just didn't follow the brand, and lots of municipalities and cities were dropping out, and so membership was declining. And I think this will help with Travel Alberta's vision. It'll help with our municipalities in not an extra cost for something that doesn't suit their region. So it's going to be in region. The name will be in region only. Any discussion? Any questions?
Do you have any questions for Councillor Bigger about the discussion about Canadian Badlands?
I'll be discussing it tonight if I can.
Okay.
At the Wheatland Regional too.
Councillor Bigger, I might have missed it, but what's the date when the members of the Badlands will be considering the dissolution?
Special meeting is going to be held next Monday.
Thanks so much.
So you have more in your report as well?
My report is presented.
There's a motion on the floor to approve Councillor Bigger's report. Any further questions? If not, I'll call the question. Any opposition? That's carried. My error, we missed the unapproved minutes for the ASB for July 7th, 2021.
Yeah, sorry, Scott. I'll move that council accept the July 7th, 2021 ASB board meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Ellison. I'm assuming there will be no questions, so I will call the question. Any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that's carried. We will move on to Division 4 Councillor report.
Yeah, the report is before you. I want to make a correction on August 20th. I filled in for neither the Reeve or the Deputy Reeve could make the meeting with WID and Siksika. It was an interesting meeting in the fact that what's that?
I was in confidence.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it was an interesting meeting, and just wanted to see that we wanted to make sure that we are all on board, that we were able to facilitate. There could be some positive results, or there will be some positive results in this sort of synergy meeting. I want to give a tip of the hat to administration on the Carlson Fire Hall. It's a beautiful building. It is absolutely functional, and it is below budget, which is, I cannot mention that enough. So you guys done a wonderful job on it. You more than met any of my expectations going into it. So thank you very much for that. And I guess I will move my report. Any questions?
Any questions for Councillor Eichert? I just want to say thank you to you for attending that meeting on short notice. I fell ill, had a 24-hour flu, and there is still flu. I will say that in public. And I was fine coming out of it, but please, thank you for doing that. And I echo your comments too about the Carlson Fire Hall. It is, it's very nice to know that we can get a project like that scope on time, on budget, and kind of reined it in, and it's working out well. So thanks again. So,
just on that, are you going to say that there's going to be a sort of a grand opening event, and you guys will be notifying public and council on when that is?
To council, Matt from administration. So we are in the process of planning an opening for council and potentially for attendees. We still have to evaluate if it's going to be grand and if it's going to be fully operational at that point. But the intention is to plan an event for the later part of September. And we'll be notifying council and potentially attendees. We obviously have to evaluate the scope of who can attend, how many in numbers and all of that. But something will be coming forward, so stay tuned.
Yeah, thank you. There's motion on the floor. I will call. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that's carried. Division 7, council report. Six, sorry?
Six.
Sorry, I skipped over you. Division 6 council report. My apologies.
Okay, thank
Mr.
you.
Kester.
On July the 6th, Wheatland Housing had a special board meeting. And at that meeting, we passed our strategic plan, our business plan for the year. We pass these plans yearly. It is a requirement of housing foundations to do. And it was passed. It was supposed to be done until June 30th. We had acquired special permission to get it done in July. At the special meeting, we discussed the new lodge build, and we made a motion that we asked the province of Alberta to pay a grant. Asked the province of Alberta, I'm just paraphrasing, to provide a grant for $23 million for the new lodge. Lodge we're thinking is $46 million with a 6% contingency. And the remaining, the balance, to be financed, and the province would pay the mortgage payments until said mortgage is paid for. And we sent that off to the government. A few days later, we got a phone call, asked for clarification. And we said just what I said. So that's in front of the government right now. Also, it looks like the 165 rooms will fit in a 4-story build. The 5th story
if the board, after more discussion, we could put independent housing on top, maybe 20, 23 suites. These would be at market, and they would be sold or whatever the board decides. It would be probably a life lease type situation. That's what most housing bodies go for. But that is still yet to be determined. Of course, yes, the hospice is included in our strategic plan, and the 46 million does not include anything with the hospice. They fundraise that for themselves. So that was done. And I think I'll just go to on the 7th, we had an Ag Service Board meeting. And the 13th, we had a MPC meeting, which was the last meeting before the break. On August 17th, we had an MPC meeting. And on 18th, there was a WRC meeting I attended of my own because I'm the alternate. August 24th, we had council. Then on August 30th, we had a special Redemption meeting I was unable to attend. I was at Rosebud, and things happened and I just couldn't make it. So the report I got from the meeting is there was a town hall meeting in Strathmore about the workers' ambulance situation and the lack of extended response times even in Strathmore. Some are approaching an hour. We have no ambulances in Strathmore most of the days. Said before, response time is double the time of the closest ambulance, which is an hour from Calgary. The crux of the problem is there's a shortage of staff. Calgary has an acute shortage of staff. They can't man all their ambulances on any given day. And there's been some snapshots from the union on Facebook, 15 area ambulances in the city. And that's what they do. Once they get in there, they can't get out. And our 2 shifts are core flex shifts. They work about 12 hours and then they're off. They're tired. So that ambulance is shut down. And there's been times that our ambulance will be up and running. They'll get a call. One was in High River and never seen it again until 12 hours later, come home for a rest. So it is an acute shortage of staff. I just want to make council aware of that I've asked for a meeting with the MLAs of the area to address these concerns with them, but it's just not Wedemza, it's province-wide. So it's, I don't know what we can do about it. It's just working conditions. Our call volumes have gone way up year over year, and there ain't much we can do about that. And this morning, short note, the 263, the Rocky Ford Access Road, they commenced paving on it. They've milled it, which was news to me. It was news to the engineer assigned to the project. And they replaced that culvert I keep whining about. They drilled it in, which was, gosh, I think we should look into more of that. It's got to be way cheaper than digging it up, packing it down, going back, and all that kind of stuff. They look like they're doing a good job. It'll be okay. And then one other thing I wanted to bring up. After our special meeting on the 6th, I got a phone call from Strathmore. The Agricultural Society invited Wheatland Housing to the rodeo. And to be particular, they were anticipating the Premier, Jason Kenney, to be there, and they wanted Wheatland Housing to share in that room. This is that it'd be a good. It would be a good opportunity to, if there was a chance to talk about the lodge. It's all an informal type thing, for sure. And I thought that was quite positive. 2 days later, I got a phone call back saying Wheatland County decided we didn't want to be there. And I says, Wheatland County? And they said Wheatland County Council, according to the news I got, said no. They didn't think it was appropriate. Reasons, I don't know. They were unsure. So I guess this wasn't Wheatland County's party. And if it was a council decision, I was not called, informed. So if somebody made the decision, then say it was that decision, not Wheatland County Council. And if it was a council decision and I wasn't involved in it, that is extremely wrong. Not only as the chair of Wheatland Housing, but as a councillor at this council. I think when we communicate on reasons, whatever they are, be explicitly clear. Because I was questioned why Wheatland County Council said no, and I had no idea. And I think in the future, when we're communicating with other municipalities, other boards, and potentially the province, that we be clear. And outside of that, that's my report. And I'll move it.
Through the chair, if I can just respond to, I do have a question about housing, but I'll ask that after I can respond to Councillor Kester's comment about the Strathmore Stampede.
Go ahead.
So I'm not sure who shared that perspective with you, Councillor Kester, but that's certainly not accurate. On Wednesday, July 28th, I received a call from Ryan Schmidt with the Strathmore Society, and he indicated that he had a request from the CAO of the town of Strathmore for Wheatland Housing Management Board to attend the Strathmore Stampede in anticipation of the Premier attending, to lobby for funding for a new lodge for the Wheatland Housing Management Board. Ryan just asked if, I had thoughts on that, and Ryan was aware. I was unfortunately double scheduled during the time when Premier Kenney was scheduled to be there. He had asked for council representation. Deputy Reeve Costin did attend and represented Wheatland County extremely well with the Premier and with the rodeo. My only indication to Mr. Schmidt was that it really had nothing to do with Wheatland County Council, that the Wheatland Housing Management Board is an autonomous body, and that obviously the Strathmore Stampede is the Strathmore Agricultural Society's event, and that the Premier was visiting their event, and that would be at their discretion, and that Wheatland County Council would have really no position on that, is what I had told Mr. Schmidt. There were several kind of frantic phone calls round and round, just between, just trying to ensure that we weren't, that there wasn't any kind of council consideration. And with discussion through administration, we determined there really was no decision for council to make. So it wasn't brought to council because there was no, it really was beyond any jurisdiction that we would have or any decision that would be pertinent to the county. I did let Mr. Schmidt know that you were the chair, and I did think that you might possibly be on holidays, so I said it might be prudent just to ensure that you were available to represent the housing board. If that was the Strathmore Stampede preference, and I really stressed that that was completely at the discretion of the Strathmore Stampede and the Strathmore Agricultural Society, because it was their event, and the minister or the Premier was attending their event. So I'm not sure how wires got crossed or this information was provided, but my understanding was it was the CAO of the town of Strathmore that had asked if you could attend with the hope of having that opportunity to advocate to the Premier. Certainly no direction was given by Wheatland County Council other than we are supportive of, the Strathmore District Agricultural Society and the work that they do. And I reaffirmed that Deputy Reeve Clausen would be attending to represent Council and that anything else would be completely independent, as Wheatland Housing Management Board is an autonomous organization, as is the Strathmore District Agricultural Society.
For myself, I did attend the event. I was involved in some of these phone calls. And what Amber is saying is correct. I was told it was not the Ag Society asking you to be there. It was the town of Strathmore wanting you to be there. And the Ag Society preferred that not to be the case. I'd be glad to go on camera and explain further in due of intergovernmental relations. There's a lot of miscommunication here. So I don't want to start painting a brush here.
That's probably most appropriate if we want to follow further to do it in
There's a
session.
procedure that was not followed in any way, shape, or form.
So I'm just telling you what was reported to me.
For sure.
There was miscommunication. Could be, probably. Does it have to go on camera? No. But I'm just telling you what the perception is out there. And we have to be extremely careful when we're talking to some of these bodies and make it clear. Done and finished with. It is an example for the future to be careful. Okay?
There was also
if we were discussing it too, I would recommend, being the board chair, I would have appreciated a phone call too. Okay? And that's all. I don't want to belabor the thing.
I don't think there's any example. We really were very conscientious that it was outside of the scope of Wheatland County, other than that we have board members. I did let Mr. Schmidt know that you were the chair and that you would be the appropriate person on behalf of the Housing Board to discuss that with, and he said both through the town of Strathmore and through yourself that he would follow up on it. That was the only reason I didn't do any further follow-up, because they essentially said they were handling it. It really was outside of anything that we had initiated. So I don't think it would have been necessarily even appropriate to bring it to council, because it really is outside our jurisdiction, being that it was, very specific to an autonomous board.
Sorry, I don't mean to change the subject, but you said that you sent the letter, like we sent the letter, the board. Is there a time that goes with that letter, or do they just hold it, and do you have to do we sit and wait? Well, how does this work usually?
So every year, the lodge submits a business plan. Every management body in the province, that is our mandate to submit. And we've set one every year. And we usually get a response back saying, yeah, we got it. The response lately have been, we're very aware of your plans and it's being considered.
Okay.
We can't put a timeline on the Alberta government when they're going to respond. They know we can be suspended the work of the architect. We got our strategic plan done. We got our business case done. He is sitting on the sidelines now, hopefully to continue the job of doing the detailed drawings. Once those detailed drawings start, we could have the shovel in the ground, he thinks, in about 6 weeks. Could have foundation still in by freeze up if we were given the go-ahead to go. The reason why we stopped it was because we don't know what the Alberta government's going to approve for us. Housing care for seniors is a provincial thing. They usually fund it. We've went as far as we could. We got the schematic, we showed the need, we did all that. We showed what the possibilities were, we showed them how close we are to building. Now it's in their court.
Okay.
Okay.
So I don't know what else to do but to lobby more.
Is the question I get asked from a lot of people, because a lot of people think that it's ready to go, and I've always said there's not the funding there from the province. So will you communicate back from the board to the public in way, shape, or form where that's at, so that people know, like, if it, I understand there's still a building committee and things like that, like, how long do you keep, I guess, what's the expectation of the board, and how long till you have to shelve it, or, and I know you don't want to, but I understand the province and the budgets and whatnot, and the future financial issues here are pretty large, so I guess what's the plan?
Plan is we haven't had a board meeting since our special meeting.
Okay.
So the board will be discussing what our options are. Yes, it costs a lot of money to build a new one. But you have to remember our current building was built in the 60s, and the maintenance costs keep going up, and pretty soon it's going to cost more than a new building. Everyone can appreciate the cost to keep that running. And as our mechanical rooms start failing on us more, we've got water tanks here or there, but if we start losing a boiler, 2 boilers, costs can soar there too. We're well aware of that. Plan moving forward is just more lobbying. A schematic drawing, if anybody from the public is listening, yeah, if you already don't know, you can go to the website at Area Architecture, like they're familiar with. Go to the community, click on Wheatland County, and you can see everything is up there for the public to see. All our draft, all our presentations to the public, all our feedbacks in there, our final schematic drawings in there, everything's there. It's public, and it's been forwarded to the government. Haven't said no yet, and they haven't said yes. I can't. Not like, I don't know how they pick. I mean, your guess is mine.
Yeah.
I know, being involved in the water in Wheatland East, Lodge has way more detailed studies and community involvement than the water one did. And the water one was a $50 million project too. Not out of the realm of possibility. When we got the okay, we just got a phone call, said the water is go, and it was a done deal. So that's what I'm waiting for.
Mr. Chair, we do have a 11:30 appointment. If council would like to make a motion for the Division 6 council report, feel free to do so, and if not, we can make one.
I believe you already had a motion on the floor. Any other questions before we move forward?
May I just ask one quick question?
Go ahead.
Councillor Kesty, in the letter, a request for $23 million from the province, and then with the province paying the balance, like the mortgage, the financing on the balance. Did you say the total build was $46 million, or the balance would be $46 million?
Total build for the lodge is $46 million, which includes a 6% contingency.
Perfect. And then you said the only thing that didn't include would be that 5th floor, which would be sort of separate because that would be leased. Is that correct?
That's an additional expense. Hospice is an additional expense.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Just one question I have, because you mentioned the age of the building, and I had heard, and maybe it's not the case, but the use of the building once you get a new one built, is there somebody planning on using it again? Because if we're going on saying that it's going to cost a lot, it's going to cost a lot of money to keep it upkeep. It'd be hard to press to say keep it going, right? You know, it's kind of.
The board has talked about it, but there's no motion.
There's no plan. Okay. Thank you. Motion on the floor. Any opposition to the motion? Seeing none, hearing none, that's carried. We do have an 11:30 appointment, and I believe the gentleman's here now. Mr. Boucher, would that be correct?
Just introduce yourself to council and go for it. Awesome, thank you.
So if you can, please speak into the microphone, because we do have some people that are online, on the phone lines, and just say your name for everybody and where you're from and stuff. The red light's on, so it will pick you up. So, okay, go ahead.
Good morning. I guess it's still morning. My name is John Boucher, and I live in Redland, and I've been living there for 15 years now, so it's made it my home. I first want to thank the council, the Wheatland Council, that made this possible for the water line to come through Redland. Apparently there was some other route that could have been taken, and we're quite grateful that it gone to Redland itself. So I'm here to ask for some financial assistance to help the resident of Redland, either through construction or sharing the costs. At this time, we have 7 houses that has registered with the WRC for water. There's possibly one more that might come on board. With the dry summer that we had so far, there's people that have shallow well, and they ran out of water this summer. So we've been trying to haul water and trying to accommodate these people that kind of ran out of water. And so I think it's a real crisis that it's a big issue there. Now I'm proposing that, and that's up to the engineering, I suppose, but if we had a 4-inch line, kind of a loop, that would be in best for the interest for the people there, we could tap in the main line and at the one intersection there and follow the road right away. So it would go like 200 meters to the east, 200 meters to the north, and 200 meters to the west, and then it would be back in the main line. So it'd be just kind of a loop. And that loop would service 8 houses, that it would just take care of 8 houses there in that loop. So I think it'd be one of the best way to go, but like I said, some engineering might want to see that different. So our beef is a little bit is that my understanding is these grants that came through from the federal and provincial government, it was based on to provide affordable, clean, safe drinking water for the town and the hamlet that the water line is running through it. So my question is why we're not getting any action on that. There was a survey done about 1.5 years ago, and the survey was not done properly or in good faith. It was more like scaring the people away, and that's what happened. The latest cost that was provided to us by a contractor does not come close to the amount that the county was asking us to pay to get hooked up. Big difference there. My understanding is that we are the only hamlet in the county that has not been helped in this matter, where the water line is in service right now. It would be nice to be like Rosebud, where they pay a fee like around $5,000, hook onto the line, and then the homeowner would be responsible for the rest of the costs on that. I don't have a whole lot to bring. Maybe you people might have some questions, but in closing, I hope that the council will have a better understanding of the situation. We're looking forward for your response at your earliest convenience, and it would be greatly appreciated. So I thank you for your time. I'm just average guy that doesn't really speak to the public a whole lot, so you could tell. But we're asking for some help, and we have a contractor that's on board. And but it's a big amount of change to. I mean, if we could split the costs or whatever, we'd be okay with that. We hate to see that the council of Wheatland County will not. It's kind of disappointing that it will not kind of help us out over there. And then with a 4-inch line, there's a possibility that other people could tie into this line. So it's not like just for the hamlet there. So any question for anybody? Or?
Thank you. Any questions for the gentleman?
Yeah, hi, John.
Yeah.
On this quote that you got, it's 101,861. That was just for the 4-inch line and a couple end stops, basically.
Yeah, it's.
So then further on goes down there to explain house 1 is 7,000, house 6 is 9,000. Right. So that's all after the line's in. And that would be your final feet into your house, right?
That's right. That's right, yeah.
So
I don't think that would include the meter, but
right.
It's probably yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So right now, like in Rosebud, the way it used to be, somebody come and wanted to hook up to water, they would pay $4,000 and they would get a hookup for their house. Council has since moved not to charge if it was Rosebud was the only hamlet, only place in the county that charged the $4,000 hookup fee. Council decided we should charge everybody $4,000 to be fair in the county. And then a few years later, council decided, no, we're not going to charge. We're hindering development and all that kind of stuff. So there is no more fee of the $4,000. So what I'm thinking, this water line we got it to run right through the middle of Redland to be able to have the water there. The line was put in. We've saved considerable money than what was originally budgeted for it. And so what you're really asking for is for the county, or is this what you're asking for, to maybe come up with $100,000 to provide a main line for Redland, and then that would supply water for the residents to be able to hook up their own water lines through their own properties and provide for future development in Redlands?
Well, if you look at the estimate there, it's based on bringing the water right to your home. So that includes the line and bringing the water right to your home. But we're quite prepared to pay part of it. Like if we had the main loop line in, it doesn't show that on the report that's out there. Okay. But that would include more houses if there was kind of a loop there. But what we're asking, if the county could put that 4-inch loop line in, and with the tie-in that where we could tie onto this line, we're gladly to take care of the rest of the costs.
Okay. So you're still saying the main line the county could put in, the homeowners could put from the curb stop into their own house?
from more or less.
Currently, that's what we do in the hamlets too, like in Speargrass
Yes.
or Carlson. We, the homeowner's got to go from the curb stop into the
Yes,
house.
and we're totally fine with that.
Good. So yeah, I don't. It's not like asking the county to bring water into the hamlet. The water's there. Hamlet themselves, I know there are residents there that don't even own a well, and they haul all their water. And some with wells are hauling water. The water is not good. Has a lot of history.
Well, it's really a shame to have this water line sitting there right through the town, and for some reason it's too expensive for the individual to be able to access them. And if we could have a cost sharing to some extent.
Okay, any?
Let me go.
Okay, so the problem with your analogy of our hamlets, Speargrass, Muirfield, there was a developer that put the water line into the place first, and then the homeowner takes it from the street to the deal. This is like, I don't know how I can square the circle that we're going to give Redlands $100,000 when the new neighbor that's drilling a well, we're not going to give him anything. He's just going to pay the $35,000 for the water to his place. Like I'm good with a debenture and all that kind of stuff. The question I'd have to ask administration is, for a debenture, how does this jive with our procurement policy? And can a single bidder be allowed to do a project, right? Like, I'm in the construction business and I'd love to be a single bidder, but I'm not allowed to do that. So I'll have to leave that to administration.
Yes, so to kind of answer that question, definitely lots of ways that council could consider potentially funding this line. As for Councillor Eichert's question about the procurement policy, so our procurement policy does state that anything greater than $75,000 must be done in an RFP and posted on our website for an RFP and other procurement policy websites, and that is typically the APC, the Alberta Purchasing Connection. The one thing I am genuinely trying to determine if it would be greater or lower than $100,000 or $200,000. So at the $200,000 threshold, that then the county must be in compliance with the Northwest Trade Partnership Agreement. So it's a $200,000 threshold limit that we have to consider. So we, as council does know, and perhaps not Mr. Boucher, we did have a study done, and it sounds like it was the reason why the cost was so high was due to the lines going up to every residence. And if that's the case, then obviously the scope of work would be lowered, so that would be cheaper. It's just how much. Definitely would have to go out and get competitive pricing for that project if council were to direct administration to undertake that.
I think just to correct, every home on the east side of the water line in Redland is signed up. So it's just for future, this loop thing. So it could possibly, same as in the diagram, stay as is until future, right?
Yes, definitely. Just a correction on that. It's 7 houses on the east side.
Right.
The one houses did not. The lady, she said she couldn't afford it, but it could be a possibility down the road.
Yeah, that house lives right on. He could spit to the water line.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But to answer the gentleman's question there. As far as drilling a well for $35,000, that would only serve that particular fellow there. But here we're talking about 7 houses right now, to be serviced for that kind of money. So, it's, it has to have a bearing here that, you're servicing 7 houses right now. It's something to take to consideration on that.
You're right, John, it's 7 houses in a named hamlet that this council keeps saying we have to support our hamlets for growth. Currently, these 7 houses, 2 more is 9 houses there. To get a little bit of calcium down. County cuts some grass in the road ditches, and sometimes you go in and patch a couple potholes with some gravel. There's no oiled roads, nothing like that. I'm not saying it's a bad place. It's trim, it's neat. The residents look after it, but the county is not involved in high-cost roads or anything.
Yeah.
And this is the first time they've asked for much of anything, and I asked, come in and tell council. They're just asking for water line help that's in county property.
Like this lady, Angela, by the name of Angela, she lost her husband here, passed away here a few years back, and she's by herself, excuse me. And I've been hauling water to her because her well, she has a shallow well and it went dry, and she's living by herself. And Lothar, he's in the same boat too. He has to haul water. It's it's not. I don't know what's going to happen this winter, if these wells will ever recover or not. These shallow wells. If not, this lady, she's got to move out. She's got to go and get an apartment somewhere because she won't be able to live there. She's got a bit of a cistern downstairs in her basement, but it's not feasible for her to hire a truck to come and keep filling that up. So it is affecting a few residents there big time. And I don't know why we haven't been really helped on this, or consult to say, well, okay, we could throw X amount of money in there and you guys could kind of take care of it, or
I think, John, originally in the past, council seen a price tag at 300,000 plus.
Yes.
That an engineer has done. The county regularly gets engineering to build roads and everything. I've got a couple roads I know Ben has. Counties built with no engineering. One is probably the best road in my vicinity. Is strictly done by the county. They're good at what they do. I don't believe we need engineering on everything when it's so simple as this.
But you mentioned that there's been an engineering done already, right?
Yeah.
A year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Could that be put back into play?
I think, I'm prepared to make a motion that we, Wheeling County, I don't know what's best. We've got this procurement policy. We have, if we can do a procurement policy on the basis of this quote, like we don't have an engineering. As soon as we add engineering, then prices go up again.
Exactly.
Right?
And the longer we wait, let's see if nothing happens till next summer or something, then contractor will bring the price up
then
again.
He walks and he wants more.
This is what we face with, yes.
Yeah, I understand all that. And I don't know would it be, I'll ask CIO, if I was to make a motion for $100,000 in aid to the hamlet, would that contravene our procurement policy? Or not saying that we hire them, or is there a way?
So, council, the motion would have to be a little bit more. It'd have to be clearer. If it's directly to construct a water line, that's okay. I think I would advise for council to direct administration to come back with some options for council's consideration on either funding or at least provide more clarity on the cost. There is a 200% cost difference between quotes. and it's not like substantially anyways, $200,000 difference between two quotes. I think we have to kind of compare apples to apples and kind of understand exactly what it is, the benefits to the residents. I think that would be it. But as for the procurement policy, I think that's something that's in place that we should definitely follow.
Okay. But I guess that makes sense to me. Direct council or staff to come back with some options and see what we can do.
Okay.
That's fine. That would be for, I just want to be clear on what we're, on the cost of the loop. Is that what you're?
I think for staff has heard John's presentation, Ms. Boucher's presentation. They were thinking a loop would be for all future. Staff would have to consider, is the loop prudent to put it in now, or can we add it at the end of where it's stopping now and continue the loop after? Well, I don't know if we can put a loop back into the water line. I think it has to come to an end. You'd have to check that out.
Yeah, this is what I don't know, whether it's feasible to come out of the and then back in again. But if maybe the drawing shows only one takeoff from the main line.
Yeah.
And maybe we should stick with that. And like you said, that's about $100,000 there to get the 7 houses service for that.
Yeah.
So to answer the question, do we need $200,000 now? Because we're not up there yet.
So, but I just want to manage expectations too. Like, we don't know what that's going to cost, and plus, if it is just the main line, maybe staff should find out what it would cost the resident to bring that to their house, so that they know before this decision's made.
Well, according to the price that we have so far, it is to bring the water line right to your house.
Yeah, but you need to separate this out.
Separate from?
I wanted the price separated out for the main line and a price separated out to your house.
I believe it is separate. It is laid out the way,
Do you know the cost of what it would bring from the main line to your home?
Well, it's been shared with 4 different other homes. So 4 of us will pay, depending on how far away from the main line you are. We share that cost as we go.
Maybe we're not talking about the same thing.
Administration could provide clarity on an update to council.
Yeah.
I think that would be best.
That would be best.
Then we all got the same paper, all same.
Okay.
Through the chair, I'd like to see some information on that, because I think originally when we put that line in there, the discussion was that we would put it in there for the purpose of supplying water to the hamlet. If we're so far out on our pricing that they can't afford it, we've missed something here. So yeah, I think we need to extend it back to staff and get something in front of us that we can in your motion, in consultation with the public that's involved too.
And I'll even maybe when staff is looking at this, to give the contractor a phone call and see if you can use his information that he supplied, just to be on the up and up with him.
Yeah, we'd look at all information that's been provided previously, historically, and look for other information too. So.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify a few points here. The regional water line, when it went up to the route through Redland, it was a blessing because it actually was the cheapest route at the same time. There was no plan or budget within Wheatland County to service Redland ever. There was nothing set aside. There was no money put in anything like that. So it just kind of happened that the water line was the cheapest.
It didn't just kind of happen.
It was the cheapest route. I have the documentation to that. It was the cheapest route to go. But there was no budget within Wheatland County that I've ever seen pertaining to Redland to do anything. Some pitfalls here. Redland has a boundary. There's a lot of residents that are just outside the boundary, that would fall into the way the current setup is would be a WRC rural user. So they have to deal with WRC directly. So we have to make sure we fall within the boundaries of Redland as they are stated right now. So there's some things there that just have to be clarified. I have no problem with servicing Redland. I do have a problem with we don't have a budget. This is coming at last minute just because a contractor's here and WRC, and I wear a WRC hat, I understand. But WRC is moving forward with this, but we still have never sat down with our staff and said, are we going to put a budget aside? Maybe this is something, anywhere else we would phase this in over years. Any other hamlet has a water reservoir, a distribution pump system, and all this. This is totally different than anything else that we have. Whether or not it can meet that needs, I don't know. That's where these gentlemen will step in and tell us. And, you know, maybe we have to have fire flows. Maybe we don't. I don't know that. Maybe we want to. Maybe we don't. That's where the price changes. Like what we had looked at before was a serviceable system, not just a tap in off of a line. So that's where the price difference was. Now, what is best and what we can do for the county, that's where we have to decide. And I have no problem looking at it again. I just wanted to say those things. There is a motion on the floor. Any further discussion on the motion? Is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing none, hearing none, that is carried. Timeline?
We can provide a timeline back at the next council meeting.
Thank you.
And Brad can do that one during his report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate your passion. I understand.
I like what I heard today.
Yeah.
I think it's positive, and I think we could work together, you know, sharing the cost or whatever, but I like what I hear. And I'm sure I'll report back to my neighbors, and they're going to be a little more relief now that maybe there's some light at the end of the tunnel. And we thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Welcome.
By seeing the clock on the wall, I see it is noon. I'm sure council would like to take a break and have lunch. Will we like a half hour or an hour lunch or 45 minutes? An hour?
Half.
Half an hour? Is that in agreement with everybody?
Maybe a working lunch.
Yeah. Half hour lunch we will take. We will resume at 12:30, and I believe lunch is here.